Hello, boys and girls. So, this week for your NTI Day packet, what you're going to be doing is a reading log for me. And each day, I want you to complete one of the pages. So, for Monday, it says, the more that you read, the more things you will know. The more you learn, the more places you'll go. And you write how many minutes you read, the title of your book, what the main idea or what it's all about is, and think of another title that you could have for this book. And you also can do one of these activities while you read. So I'm going to pick for the first one, I'm going to read sitting on the floor, but you can do a lot of different things. You can read while you eat breakfast, or we could also use read a nonfiction book. I could mark both of those off today. So I'm going to read sitting on the floor today, and I'm reading a nonfiction book. So I could mark both of those off on my bingo board. All right, so I'm going to make my screen bigger so that you can see me. Okay, so the book that I'm going to be reading to you today is called John, Paul, George, and Ben, about our founding fathers for our country. Once there were 4 lads, John, Paul, George, and Ben. Make that 5 lads. There was also independent Tom, always off doing his own thing. John was a bold lad. At the start of every school year, the students were asked to write their names on the chalkboard, and every year it was the same story. John, his teacher would say, "You have lovely penmanship. John, your confidence is refreshing. But John, come on." Excuse me. We don't need to read it from space. So when I said that this book was about the founding fathers, boys and girls, these are the people that helped start our country and helped write the rules and our Constitution. And they wrote the Declaration of Independence as well. And John Hancock is famous for signing his name really big on the Declaration of Independence. Paul was a noisy lad. Before fun was invented, people joined bell ringing clubs. As a member at Boston's Old North Church, Paul spent hours practicing in the belfry tower. Over time, that bell ringing took a toll on young Paul. All day, his head was filled with loud bings and bongs. He had to practically scream just to hear himself talk. Now, that's fine around the belfry, but not at work. Extra large underwear? Sure, we have some. Let's see. Large, large, extra large. Here they are, great big extra large underwear. Paul was like a bullhorn in a china shop. Your wig? Yes, it's coming. And your polka dot shirts are coming. And the pink breeches are coming. So he was shouting about what people wanted him to be quiet about, but he didn't realize he was shouting. It took many years and a midnight ride for people to finally appreciate his special talent. The redcoats are coming. So that's Paul Revere, and he made a very important ride to let people know the redcoats were the British, and they were invading. Everyone except that big underwear lady. She was still mad. George was an honest lad. One day he took his shiny new hatchet and chopped down his family's cherry tree. When his father discovered the tree, he asked, "Son, do you know who killed this beautiful little cherry tree?" "I cannot tell a lie," he answered George. "'Twas I who chopped down this cherry tree." "Then run to my arms, dearest boy," cried his father, "for you have paid me for it 1,000-fold with your honesty." "Really?" said George. "In that case..." When I tell you I've taken out the apple orchard, leveled the barn, and made kindling of your carriage, you'll be a wealthy, wealthy man. Ben was a clever lad. Not only did he have a saying for every situation, he generously shared them with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Fish and visitors stink after 3 days. He considered it his duty to provide frequent free advice. The sleeping fox catches no poultry. Those who are in quarrels interpose must often wipe a bloody nose. If your head is waxed, don't walk in the sun. 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. The townfolk were so taken by his generosity they came up with a saying, especially for Ben. Please shut your big yap. I like it, said Ben. Short and to the point. Work a fox or turkey in there, and I think you've got something. Tom was an independent lad. One day his teacher, Mr. Douglas, asked the class to make birdhouses by gluing macaroni to ye old balsa wood. Tom happily ignored him and used traditional building materials in a neoclassical design. When the class made a palm tree, Tom took one look and said, "Not on your life," then quickly left. To sketch his own tree. "Young Thomas," fumed Teacher Douglas, "would you mind explaining to the class why you insist on working so independently?" "Certainly," said Tom. "In fact, I've taken the liberty to list the very reasons." Tom learned the power of his words that day. Mr. Douglas told him to pursue all the life, liberty, and happiness he wanted. Independently in the corner, the other students pursued lunch. The rest is history. Say, you want a revolution? Well, John, Paul, George, Ben, and Tom sure did. In April of 1775, they got one. The Redcoats were coming. In fact, King George III's army was marching to Lexington and Concord to arrest John and other Sons of Liberty. Fortunately, Paul Revere was a noisy man. After his midnight ride, every Minuteman, woman, and child knew who was coming and what they'd be wearing. It was the start of the Revolutionary War, which is the war we fought, boys and girls, our country fought for our independence so that we could be our own country. Because when we first started out, we were under the control of the British or the Great Britain. The Americans needed to formally state their separation from the king. Who better than Thomas Jefferson, an independent man, to write the Declaration of Independence? Simply signing such a document was treasonous and dangerous. Ben Franklin, a clever man, said it best. "We must all hang together," he quipped, "or assuredly we shall all hang separately." One might think twice about signing his name, but not John Hancock. A bold man, he was the first to scribble his autograph, and man, just look at the size of that John Hancock. So that's what we call a signature. We even call signatures, a nickname for signatures. Somebody might say, "I want your John Hancock," which means a signature. You sign your name. The war was won thanks to General Washington. Everyone thought he would make a great king for the new United States of America. But George Washington was an honest man. "The last thing we need is another King George," he said. President George, however, has a nice ring to it. So this book, boys and girls, was talking about them as kids, and it kind of put a funny spin on how they got to where they are. So this is real people. But when they were kids, those were just funny stories. George didn't live in the White House like all the other presidents. He was asked to live in New York City, where there weren't so many trees. All right, and down at the back of this book, there's also some things that you can read, and they tell you if it's true or if it's false. So, for example, all of Ben's sayings, Benjamin Franklin, all of his sayings in this book were actually true. And yes, they were all real things that he said. They're all from Poor Richard's Almanac, which he wrote. George chopped down his father's cherry tree. False. This fable was invented by Mason Parson Weems. Pretty funny considering he made up a ye old tale to teach kids a lesson in honesty. So there's some true and false facts there that you can read if you ever wanted to check out this book on your own. All right, that's the book that I read, boys and girls. If I were answering my 2 questions about it, let's go back to that. Sorry, boys and girls, I'm having technical difficulties. There we go. All right. So if we go back to our 2 questions, it said, what is the main idea of your book? So the main idea of this book was telling a funny story about the founding fathers when they were kids and talking about their accomplishments when they were older. And think of another title for this book. If I was trying to think of another title, I would probably call it The Founding Fathers or something similar because that's what it was about. All right, I hope you enjoyed this book, boys and girls. And I hope that you all have had a good day. And I will read another story with you tomorrow. Have fun reading and have fun on Virtual Field Day on Friday. I will talk to you tomorrow.